The slap echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. Her vision blurred. Her cheek burned. And for a moment, just a moment, she was back in that apartment in Chicago, with his hand around her throat and his voice in her ear, telling her she was nothing. But this wasn't Chicago. This was Seoul. And the man walking through that door wasn't going to ask questions. If you want to see what happens when a mafia boss discovers his wife's darkest secret, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't believe how this ends. 3 years earlier, before that restaurant, before Seoul, before Musong, before she became someone else entirely, her name was Caroline Mitchell. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment on the south side of Chicago with a man named Antonio Reyes. And she was dying. Not quickly, not dramatically, slowly, invisibly, the way a flower dies when no one remembers to water it. Antonio didn't hit her every day. That was what made it so confusing. Some days, he brought her flowers. He kissed her forehead and told her she was beautiful. He held her at night and whispered promises about the future. Other days, he told her she was worthless, that no one would ever want her, that she should be grateful he stayed. And on the worst days, he made sure she believed it. She remembered the first time he hit her. They had been together 8 months. She had made dinner, pasta, his favorite, but she had forgotten to buy the specific brand of Parmesan he liked. "You can't even do this right," he said, his voice calm. Too calm. She laughed nervously and told him it was just cheese, that it tasted the same. The back of his hand caught her across the mouth. She tasted blood before she felt the pain. He stood over her, breathing hard, his eyes wide, as if he had surprised himself. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "Caroline, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean God. I don't know what came over me." He cried. He held her. He promised it would never happen again. And she believed him. Because she loved him. Because she thought love meant staying. Because she didn't yet know that love should never taste like blood. It happened again, 2 weeks later. Then a month after that. Then every few days. Then she stopped counting. She started wearing long sleeves in summer. She learned how to angle her face away from cameras. She smiled at work and told everyone she was fine. Just tired. Just stressed. She became an expert liar. But the worst part was this. She started believing his words more than her own thoughts. She was too sensitive. No one else would put up with her. She was lucky he loved her. She looked in the mirror and saw what he told her. She was damaged, difficult, unlovable. She stopped seeing Caroline. She saw his version of her instead. Antonio controlled everything. The money, especially. She had a job. She worked as a medical receptionist. But her paychecks went straight into their joint account. Their account. Except she needed permission to buy anything over $20. "It's not about control," he would say, kissing her temple. "It's about us being a team. We make decisions together." But together, meant she asked, and he decided. So she started stealing. $10 here, 20 there. She took cash back at the grocery store and hid it. Folded bills taped under drawers. Tucked into the lining of her winter coat. Slipped between the pages of books she knew he would never read. It took her 11 months to save $800. $800. That was what her freedom cost. The night she left, Antonio had been drinking. Not drunk, just enough to make him mean. "You think you're better than me?" he said, standing too close, his breath hot against her face. "No," she whispered. "I never said that. You don't have to say it. I see it in your eyes." "Antonio, please." His hand closed around her throat. Not enough to stop her breathing. Just enough to remind her that he could. "Say it," he hissed. "Say you're nothing without me." She couldn't speak. He squeezed harder. "Say it." Tears streamed down her face. Her vision began to blur. And then, for just a second, his grip loosened. She gasped, and something inside her snapped. Not broke. Snapped into place. She waited until he passed out on the couch. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't take anything that mattered. She grabbed only the envelope of cash from under the bathroom sink, her passport from the lockbox he thought she didn't know the code to, and the burner phone she had bought 3 weeks earlier. She walked out of that apartment at 2:47 a.m. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. She just walked. At the bus station, she bought a ticket to Los Angeles under her real name. Then she bought another ticket to Vancouver under a fake one. In Vancouver, she applied for a work visa to South Korea using a name she had stolen from a girl she went to high school with, a girl who had moved to Europe and would never notice. It wasn't legal. It wasn't clean, but it worked. 3 weeks later, She landed in Seoul. On paper, she became Cassie Bell. Caroline Mitchell disappeared, but fear did not need a passport. It followed her across the ocean, into her new apartment, into her new life. She flinched at loud voices. She held her breath when men walked too close. She avoided mirrors because she still saw his version of her staring back. Korea was supposed to be freedom. Instead, it was just distance. She got a job teaching English at a private academy in Gangnam. She kept her head down. She smiled when she was supposed to. She said the right things. And at night, she locked every door, checked every window, and slept with the lights on. Because even though Antonio was an ocean away, she could still feel his hands around her throat. She met Musong on a Tuesday. She was walking home from work when the rain started. One of those sudden soul downpours that soaked you in seconds. She ducked into a small cafe, shivering, her hair plastered to her face. And there he was, sitting alone by the window, reading a book in Korean. He looked up when she walked in. Their eyes met, and for reasons she still didn't fully understand, he smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, quiet curve of his lips, like he recognized something in her. "You look like you've had a long day," he said in perfect English. She blinked, surprised. She asked if he spoke English. He said he did, then gestured to the empty chair across from him. He told her the rain wouldn't stop for a while. She hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to leave, to not trust a stranger. But something about him felt safe. So she sat. His name was Park Musong. He didn't tell her what he did for a living, and she didn't ask. They talked about small things. The weather, the city, books. He asked where she was from, and she lied without effort. California. He nodded, as if he believed her, or as if he knew she was lying and didn't care. They met again the next week. The same cafe, the same table, then again, and again. And somewhere between the third meeting and the 10th, she realized she was falling in love with him. Musong was unlike anyone she had ever met. He was calm, controlled. He never raised his voice, never moved too quickly, never touched her without asking first. "May I?" he would say before brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Is this okay?" before resting his hand on hers. He made her feel like she had a choice, like she mattered, like she was more than what Antonio had told her she was. 6 months after they met, he proposed. They were sitting on a bench by the Han River, watching the sun set over the water. "Cassie," he said quietly. She turned to look at him. He was holding a small black box. He told her he knew there were things she hadn't told him, and that he knew she had her reasons. He said he saw her, not who she was hiding from, but her, and that he wanted to spend his life with her. Tears blurred her vision. She should have told him the truth then. She should have said that her name wasn't Cassie, that she was running from someone, that she was broken. But she didn't. She just said yes. They got married in a small ceremony with no guests. Just the two of them, a judge, and 2 witnesses Musong knew. She wore a simple white dress. He wore a black suit. And when he kissed her, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Their wedding night was quiet. They went back to Musong's apartment, now their apartment, and he poured them each a glass of wine. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. She echoed him, but even as the words left her mouth, she felt the weight of the lie between them. That night, Musong touched her as if she were made of glass. Slow, careful, reverent. His hands moved over her skin with a gentleness that made her chest ache. "Are you okay?" he whispered against her neck. She nodded, but her body betrayed her. She flinched when his hand moved too quickly. She held her breath when he leaned over her, and when he noticed, he stopped. "Cassie," he said softly. He told her they didn't have to continue. She said no quickly, that she wanted to, that she just needed a minute. He pulled back immediately, giving her space. He told her to take all the time she needed. He told her he wasn't going anywhere, and he didn't. He held her until her breathing steadied, until the panic faded, until she could look him in the eyes again. That was when she knew. She knew she was safe with him. But safety didn't erase the past. At night, she still woke in cold sweats, her heart pounding, Antonio's voice echoing in her head. She was nothing. No one would ever want her. She belonged to him. Musong would wake with her, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her close. He would ask if she'd had a bad dream. She would whisper that she had. He never pushed. He just held her until she fell asleep again. She didn't really know what Musong did for a living. He had told her he handled business for a private organization, that he managed logistics. It was vague, and she didn't press. She had secrets too. She figured if he wanted her to know, he would tell her. But she started noticing things. The way people looked at him when they walked into restaurants, respectful, but nervous. The way his phone rang at odd hours, and he stepped into another room to answer. The way men in expensive suits bowed slightly when they passed him on the street. One night, she asked him directly what he really did. He looked at her for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he said he protected people. From what? She asked. From other people. It wasn't a real answer. But it was enough. Their marriage settled into a rhythm. In the mornings, he made her coffee exactly the way she liked it. 2 sugars, a splash of cream. In the evenings, they cooked together, his hand resting on her lower back as she chopped vegetables. At night, they lay in bed, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her skin. And in those moments, she almost forgot. She almost forgot Antonio. She almost forgot the woman she used to be. She almost forgot she was living a lie. But the body remembers, even when the mind tries to forget. She couldn't stand being grabbed, even playfully. She hated raised voices, even in excitement. She needed to see exits in every room. And Musong noticed. He didn't say anything, but she saw the way he watched her. The way he announced himself before entering a room. The way he never blocked doorways. The way he moved slowly and deliberately, like he was afraid of startling her. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. It was a Friday night, 6 months into their marriage. Musong had texted her earlier that day, telling her to meet him at Seasons at 7 because he had a surprise for her. She had smiled at her phone. He was always doing things like that. Small gestures that made her feel seen, cherished, loved. She put on a black dress, the one he had bought her the previous month, and arrived at the restaurant early. Seasons was upscale, with white tablecloths and soft lighting. The kind of place where conversations were murmured instead of spoken. She sat at their reserved table and ordered water. 7 o'clock came and went. 7:15. 7:30. She checked her phone. No messages. She tried calling him. It went straight to voicemail. By 7:45, she was worried. By 8 o'clock, she was panicking. And that was when she felt it. That cold, creeping sensation of being watched. She looked up, and her entire world shattered. Antonio Reyes was standing across the restaurant, staring directly at her. Time stopped. Her hands went numb. Her vision tunneled. She couldn't breathe. No, no, no. This wasn't real. He couldn't be there. He didn't know where she was. He couldn't. But he was. And he was walking toward her. Caroline. His voice. That voice. It cut through her like a blade. She stood so fast her chair tipped backward. My name is Cassie, she said, her voice shaking. You have the wrong person. He smiled. That smile. The smile was the one that had once made her feel special, before it became a warning sign. Don't do this, he said softly as he stepped closer. Don't pretend you don't know me. I don't know you, she said, louder now. Please leave me alone. People were starting to stare. Antonio's jaw tightened. 3 years, he said, his voice dropping. 3 years I've been looking for you. And you think you could just walk away? Just change your name and disappear? Her stomach dropped. How did you? She started. How did I find you? He laughed, low and bitter. You're not as smart as you think you are, Caroline. I hired a private investigator. Tracked your passport. Followed the trail. And here you are, playing house with some Korean businessman. He stepped closer. She stepped back. We need to talk, he said. No. Yes. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. She gasped. His grip was tight. Too tight. Let go of me, she whispered. Not until you listen. Let go. Caroline. My name is Cassie. And then he slapped her. The crack echoed through the restaurant. Her head snapped to the side. Her ears rang. Everything went silent. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just left. Not physically, but mentally. It was dissociation, when the mind evacuates the body because the pain becomes too much. She would learn the word for it years later, in therapy. But in that moment, she only felt emptiness. Antonio grabbed a fistful of her hair and began dragging her toward the door. We're leaving, he said. Now. She didn't fight. She couldn't. Her body had shut down. And then the door opened. Musong walked in. He saw her immediately. He saw the blood on her lip, saw the terror in her eyes, saw Antonio's hand twisted in her hair. For a moment, everything was still, and then Musong moved. She had never seen a move like that. Fast, precise, deadly. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed Antonio by the back of his neck, and slammed him face first into the nearest table. The sound was sickening. Antonio screamed. Musong didn't say a word. He pulled him up and hit him again, and again, and again. Musong stopped. Her voice broke through the haze. He froze, his fist raised. Antonio's blood smeared across his knuckles. He looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Rage. Not at her. For her. Antonio scrambled backward, clutching his broken nose, blood pouring down his face. "You're fucking crazy," he shouted. Musong took a step toward him. Antonio ran. He stumbled out of the restaurant, shoving people aside, and disappeared into the night. The restaurant fell silent. Everyone was staring. Musong turned to her, his breathing heavy, his eyes searching her face. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice shaking. She opened her mouth. No sound came out. He stepped closer, his hand reaching for her, then stopping midair. "May I?" he whispered. She nodded. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing over her split lip. "We're going home," he said. She nodded again, and he led her out of the restaurant, his arm wrapped protectively around her. The drive home was silent. Musong's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Cassie sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, watching the city lights blur past. She still couldn't feel her body, couldn't feel the pain in her lip, couldn't feel anything except the hollow, aching numbness that came from being dragged back into a past she thought she'd buried. When they pulled into the underground parking garage of their building, Musong turned off the engine, but didn't move. For a long moment, they just sat there in the darkness. Then he spoke. Who was he? His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. Cassie swallowed hard. "Someone from my past." "That's not an answer, Cassie." She flinched at the sharpness in his tone. He noticed immediately. "I'm sorry," he said, softer now. "I didn't mean. I just need to understand what happened back there." She took a shaky breath. "Can we go inside first?" He nodded. Inside the apartment, Musong led her to the bathroom. He grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink and gestured for her to sit on the edge of the bathtub. She did. He knelt in front of her, his movements careful, controlled. He wet a clean cloth with warm water and gently pressed it to her split lip. She winced. "I know," he murmured. "I'm sorry. Just a little longer." His touch was so gentle it made her chest ache. Antonio had never touched her like this. Even in the beginning, when things were good, his touch had always carried weight, possession, control, ownership. But Musong touched her like she was something precious. "Your lip will be fine," he said quietly, setting the cloth aside. "No stitches needed." "Thank you." He sat back on his heels, studying her face. "Now will you tell me who he was?" Cassie looked down at her hands. "His name is Antonio Reyes." Silence. "He's my ex." More silence. "And he's the reason I came to Korea." Musong didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the sink, and washed the blood from his hands. When he turned back to Cassie, his expression was unreadable. "Start from the beginning," he said. So she did. She told him everything. About the apartment in Chicago. About the first time Antonio hit her. About the years of control, manipulation, and violence. About the money she'd hidden. About the night she ran. About the fake name she'd used to get to Korea. About Cassie Bell, who was just another mask. And about Caroline Mitchell, the girl she used to be before Antonio convinced her she was nothing. By the time she finished, she was crying. Not sobbing. Just silent tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have told you. I should have been honest from the beginning. But I was scared. I thought if you knew what I'd been through, what I'd survived, you'd see me the way he did. Damaged. Broken. Used." Musong crossed the bathroom in 2 steps and pulled her into his arms. "Stop," he said firmly. She tried to pull away, but he held her tighter. "Listen to me, Cassie. Are you listening?" She nodded against his chest. "You're not damaged. You're not broken. You survived something most people wouldn't have survived, and you did it alone. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you the strongest person I've ever met." Her breath hitched. But I lied to you. You protected yourself, he interrupted. There's a difference. He pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. I don't care what name you use. I don't care what name is on a piece of paper. I care about you. The woman standing in front of me right now. That's who I married. That's who I love. Something inside her cracked wide open. And for the first time in 3 years, she let herself cry. Really cry. Not silent tears. Not controlled sobs. She cried the way you cry when you've been holding everything in for so long you forget what it feels like to let go. And Musong held her through all of it. Later that night, they lay in bed together. She was curled against his chest, his arm wrapped protectively around her. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. About Antonio? Yes. He was silent for a moment. Then he asked, what do you want me to do? She thought about it. Part of her wanted him to make Antonio disappear, to make sure he could never find her again, to hurt him the way he had hurt her. But another part of her, the part that was trying to heal, knew that violence wouldn't fix what was broken inside her. I want him exposed, she said quietly. I want everyone to know what he is. I don't want him to hide anymore. Musong was quiet for a moment. Then he said, then that's what we'll do. The next morning, Musong made several phone calls. Cassie didn't ask who he was calling. She just watched as he spoke in rapid Korean. Then in English, his tone clipped and authoritative. When he hung up, he turned to her. I'm going to need you to trust me, he said. What I'm about to do, it's not going to be quick, but we'll be thorough. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure Antonio Reyes becomes exactly what he made you feel like. Exposed. Powerless. Trapped. Musong hired a private investigator. Not to find Antonio. He already knew where he was, but to uncover everything about Antonio and his other victims, because men like him always have a pattern. And there were others. So many others. The investigator worked quietly, methodically. He traced Antonio's relationships back 10 years. Every woman he'd dated. Every woman he'd worked with. Every woman who'd filed a complaint that had been mysteriously dropped. Within 3 weeks, he'd identified 17 women. 17 women who had stories identical to Cassie's. Musong didn't approach them himself. Instead, he hired a trauma counselor, a woman who specialized in domestic violence cases. Her name was Dr. Lisa Chun. She reached out to each woman individually, offering free counseling and asking one simple question. Would you be willing to tell your story? Not all of them said yes. Some were still too afraid. Some had moved on and didn't want to relive the trauma. But 9 women agreed. 9 women who were ready to speak. Musong didn't just want their stories heard. He wanted them seen. So he had a website built. Simple, clean, professional. The homepage had a single headline. The truth about Antonio Reyes. Below it, a subtitle. Stories from the women he abused. Each woman's story was posted anonymously, with their permission. But the details were specific. Dates, locations, incidents, medical records from hospital visits, police reports that had been filed and ignored, screenshots of threatening text messages, photos of bruises, black eyes, split lips. Everything was documented. Everything was real. At the bottom of the page, there was a single photo of Antonio. Not a mugshot, just a regular photo from his social media. Smiling, confident, charming. The caption read, "This is Antonio Reyes, and these are his victims." The website went live on a Tuesday morning. Within hours, it had been shared across social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. Women's advocacy groups picked it up. Domestic violence organizations shared it. Local news outlets in Chicago started reporting on it. Suddenly, Antonio Reyes wasn't invisible anymore. He was everywhere. The hashtag started organically. Hashtag Antonio Domestic Abuser. Women who'd never met each other began sharing their stories in the comments. Not just about Antonio. About men like Antonio. About abusers who'd never been held accountable. But Antonio's victims, the ones who'd agreed to speak, were the loudest. One woman, Jennifer Martinez, posted a video on TikTok. She sat in front of the camera, no makeup, no filter, and said, "My name is Jennifer Martinez, and Antonio Reyes broke 3 of my ribs, gave me a concussion, and told me I was too stupid to leave him. He was wrong." The video went viral. 2 million views in 48 hours. Another woman, Shanice Brooks, posted on Instagram. She shared a photo of herself from 5 years ago. Her face bruised, her eyes swollen shut. The caption read, This is what Antonio Reyes did to me when I told him I wanted to break up. He said if I told anyone, he'd kill me. I believed him, but I'm not scared anymore. Hashtag Antonio Domestic Abuser. 50,000 likes. Thousands of comments of support. One by one, the women came forward. Not anonymously anymore, but publicly. With their faces, their names, their voices. And the world listened. Antonio worked as a sales manager at a pharmaceutical company called MedTech Solutions. He'd been there for 6 years. He was good at his job. Charming. Persuasive. Successful. But within a week of the website going live, his co-workers started talking. Did you see that website? Yeah. That's Antonio, right? Holy shit. I had no idea. Remember Sarah from accounting? She dated him for like 3 months and then quit suddenly. Oh my God. HR received 17 emails in one day. All from current or former female employees. All with similar stories. Inappropriate comments. Unwanted advances. One woman, a former intern named Rachel Kim, sent screenshots of text messages Antonio had sent her when she was 22. Messages that were sexual, threatening, manipulative. She'd never reported them because she was afraid of losing her job. But now she had nothing to lose. MedTech Solutions fired Antonio on a Friday afternoon. They issued a statement. We take allegations of misconduct seriously. After a thorough internal investigation, we have terminated Antonio Reyes's employment, effective immediately. Antonio tried to fight it. He hired a lawyer. He threatened to sue for wrongful termination. But his lawyer dropped him after seeing the evidence. I can't defend this, the lawyer said. You're on your own. Antonio's friends started distancing themselves. Not all at once. Just slowly, quietly. Calls went unreturned. Invitations stopped coming. People who used to hang out with him suddenly had other plans. Antonio couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. At the grocery store, women would stare at him, then whisper to their friends. At the gym, men would give him looks of disgust. At restaurants, servers would refuse to serve him once they realized who he was. Someone created a subreddit dedicated to tracking his movements. r/Antonio Reyes Abuser. People posted sightings. Just saw him at Whole Foods on Clark Street. He looked miserable. Spotted him at a bar in Wicker Park. He got kicked out after someone recognized him. His apartment building received complaints from other tenants. They didn't feel safe with him living there. The landlord asked him to leave. Antonio moved 3 times in 2 months. But it didn't matter. Someone always found out. Someone always recognized him. He tried creating new social media accounts under fake names. They were identified and reported within days. He tried applying for jobs under a different name. Background checks revealed his identity. He was trapped, not physically, but socially, economically, psychologically. Everywhere he went, people knew, and they remembered. Musong came to Cassie with a question one evening. Antonio wants to apologize to you. In person. She looked up from her tea. Why? Because his therapist told him it might help him. She laughed bitterly. Help him? That's what I said. Musong sat down next to her. But I thought you should know. You don't have to see him. You don't owe him anything. Cassie thought about it. I want to see him, she said finally. Are you sure? Yes. But I want the other women there too. Musong raised an eyebrow. All of them. As many as want to come. A week later, 9 of them sat in a private conference room. Cassie, Jennifer, Shanice, Rachel, and 5 other women whose lives Antonio had shattered. They sat in a semicircle, and Antonio sat across from them, alone. He looked terrible, thin, pale, exhausted. His eyes were red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. I'm sorry, he began, his voice shaking. I know that's not enough. I know nothing I say will ever be enough. But I need you all to know, I'm sorry for what I did, for the pain I caused, for the lies I told, for making you believe you were worthless when you were never anything but strong. He was crying now. I was a monster, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. The room was silent. Then Jennifer spoke. Do you know what it's like to be afraid of your own shadow? To flinch every time someone raises their voice? To look in the mirror and hate what you see because someone convinced you that you're garbage? Antonio nodded, tears streaming down his face. Yes, I do now. Good, Jennifer said coldly. Then you know exactly what you put us through. One by one, the other women spoke. They told him how he'd broken them, how he'd stolen years of their lives, how they'd had to rebuild themselves from nothing. And Antonio listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. He just listened. When it was Cassie's turn, she stood up. "I don't forgive you," she said clearly, "and I never will. But I want you to know something. You didn't break me. You tried. God knows you tried. But I'm still here. And I'm stronger than I've ever been. Not because of you. In spite of you." She looked at the other women. "We all are." And then they left. All 9 of them. Together. Leaving Antonio alone in that room with nothing but his guilt. 3 months after the confrontation with Antonio, Cassie started therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where you sit and talk about your feelings for an hour and leave feeling the same. But the kind where you have to face the parts of yourself you've been running from. The parts that still flinch. The parts that still believe the lies. The parts that think love has to hurt to be real. Her therapist's name was Dr. Sarah Kim. She was a Korean-American woman in her 50s who specialized in trauma and PTSD. The first time Cassie sat in her office, Dr. Kim asked a simple question. "What do you want from therapy?" Cassie thought about it for a long time. Then she said, "I want to stop being afraid." Dr. Kim nodded. "Then that's what we'll work toward." Therapy wasn't easy. Some sessions, Cassie would leave feeling lighter, like she'd finally let go of something she'd been carrying for too long. Other sessions, she'd leave feeling raw, exposed, like someone had peeled back her skin and examined every wound. But slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, she started to change. She stopped flinching when Musong reached for her suddenly. She stopped holding her breath when he raised his voice at the TV during soccer games. She stopped checking the locks on the doors 3 times before bed. She stopped looking over her shoulder everywhere she went. And one night, about 4 months into therapy, something shifted. They were lying in bed together. Musong was reading a book in Korean, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Cassie was scrolling through her phone, not really looking at anything. And then she just looked at him, really looked at him. The way his hair fell across his forehead, the way his jaw tightened slightly when he concentrated, the way his hand rested on her thigh, warm and steady. And for the first time in her entire life, she felt safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. Safe enough to want. Safe enough to desire. Safe enough to choose. Cassie put her phone down. Musong glanced over at her. "Everything okay?" She nodded. Then she leaned over and kissed him. It wasn't like their other kisses. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't careful. It was deliberate, certain, full of intention. Musong pulled back slightly, searching her eyes. "Cassie, I want this," she said softly. "I want you. Not because I think I should. Not because I'm trying to prove something. But because I want to." His eyes darkened with something she'd seen glimpses of before, but never fully. Desire. "Are you sure?" "Yes." He set his book aside and cupped her face in his hands. "If you need me to stop at any point, I know. If anything feels wrong, I'll tell you." He searched her eyes for another moment. Then he kissed her. Musong moved slowly. Not because he was unsure, but because he wanted her to feel every moment, every touch, every breath, every choice she was making. His hands moved over her skin like he was memorizing her. Her shoulders, her waist, her hips. He paused at every scar, every place Antonio had left a mark, and kissed it gently. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her collarbone. "You don't have to say that." "I'm not saying it because I have to." He looked up at her. "I'm saying it because it's true." For the first time, she believed him. They moved together slowly, carefully, and when she started to tense, when old fears tried to creep in, Musong would stop. "Look at me," he'd say softly, and she would. And in his eyes, she'd see nothing but love, nothing but patience, nothing but certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her back. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. Not because you saved me." He was quiet for a moment. "I didn't save you, Cassie. You saved yourself. I just made sure you had a safe place to land." And that's when she realized something. Healing wasn't about forgetting what happened. It wasn't about erasing the scars. It was about learning that the scars didn't define her, that she was more than what had been done to her, that she deserved love, not despite her past, but including it. Caroline stopped going by Cassie. She went back to her real name, Caroline, not because she was no longer afraid, but because she didn't need to hide anymore. Musong helped her legally change her name back, Caroline Mitchell. She also reconnected with her family. Her mother cried when she heard Caroline's voice on the phone for the first time in 4 years. "I thought you were dead," her mother sobbed. "I'm not," Caroline said gently. "I'm okay. I'm safe. And I'm ready to talk." It took time, but slowly, she rebuilt those bridges. Her mother flew to Seoul to meet Musong. She hugged him for a full minute when they first met. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for taking care of my daughter." Musong just smiled and said, "She takes care of herself. I'm just lucky enough to be here." Caroline never saw Antonio again after that day in the conference room, but she heard about him. Everyone did. The social media storm never stopped. Anytime Antonio tried to rebuild his life, someone would recognize him. A new job? Reported within days. A new apartment? Neighbors would complain. A new relationship? The woman would be warned. He tried moving to a different city. It didn't matter. The internet never forgets. Eventually, he stopped trying. Last Caroline heard, he was living in a small town in rural Indiana, working manual labor under a supervisor who knew exactly who he was. He had no friends, no social life, no future. And the worst part, he was alive. Every single day, he woke up knowing that everyone knew what he was, that he could never escape it, that his name would always be synonymous with abuse. Musong had been right. Death would have been mercy. This was justice. 1 year later, Caroline stood in front of a room full of women, 23 of them, all survivors of domestic violence, all attending a support group she had started with Jennifer, Shanice, and Rachel. "My name is Caroline," she said, "and 5 years ago, I ran from a man who tried to convince me I was worthless." The room was silent. He hit me. He controlled me. He made me believe I didn't deserve love, that I didn't deserve safety, that I didn't deserve to exist without him. She paused. "But I'm here to tell you, he was wrong." She looked around the room. "You are not broken. You are not damaged. You are not what he said you were. You survived. And survival is the first step toward healing." After the meeting, a young woman approached her. She couldn't have been more than 22. "Thank you," the young woman said quietly. I needed to hear that. What's your name?" "Mia." "How long have you been out?" 3 weeks. Caroline nodded. "The first few weeks are the hardest. But I promise you, it gets easier. Not fast, but it gets easier." Tears welled up in Mia's eyes. "I'm so scared." "I know." Caroline took her hand. "But you're not alone anymore." That night, Caroline came home to find Musong cooking dinner. He looked up when she walked in and smiled. "How was the group?" "Good. We had a new member today." "Yeah." He stirred something on the stove. "How'd it go?" "She's scared, but she's strong." Musong walked over and wrapped his arms around her. "Just like you." Caroline leaned into him. "I'm not scared anymore," she said softly. "I know." They stood there for a moment, just holding each other. Then she pulled back and looked up at him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For believing me. For protecting me. For never making me feel like I was too much or not enough." Musong cupped her face. "You never have to thank me for loving you the way you deserve to be loved. That's not a favor. That's a privilege." And in that moment, Caroline realized something. She had spent so many years believing love had to hurt, that it had to control, that it had to take. But Musong taught her something different. Love doesn't hurt. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't take. Real love protects. Real love empowers. Real love gives. And for the first time in her life, she had that. Antonio Reyes thought he could break her. He thought he could erase her. He thought he could make her disappear. But he was wrong. She didn't just survive. She healed. She rebuilt. She reclaimed her name, her voice, and her life. And now she helped other women do the same. Because no one should have to run the way she did. No one should have to hide the way she did. No one should have to believe the lies the way she did. If you're watching this and you're in an abusive relationship, please know, you're not alone. You're not worthless. You are not broken. You deserve safety. You deserve love. You deserve to be free. And if you've already left, I'm proud of you. Keep going. Keep healing. Keep fighting. Because you are stronger than you know. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below with the word survivor if you or someone you know has overcome domestic violence. And remember, healing isn't linear. It's messy. It's painful. But it's possible. Thank you for watching. And remember, you are worthy of love that doesn't hurt.